On Jubes and Kerr, me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter Father Calvin Robinson. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 4. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. The UK is boosting its support for Ukraine, pledging a £50 million package of air defence aid. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed the move during an unannounced visit to Kyiv. He told President Volodymyr Zelensky the UK will continue to stand with the country as it fights to end Russia's barbarous war.
Your homes, your hospitals, your power stations are being destroyed by the air. So to help you defend yourselves, we are today providing new air defence support, including 120 anti-aircraft guns, radar and anti-drone equipment. We're extending our training for the Ukrainian armed forces to include specialist expertise from UK medics and engineers. And we are stepping up our support to help you through the cold, hard winter ahead.
The chief executive of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing has been sacked after a 2-year-old boy died following prolonged exposure to mould. An inquest heard how the parents of Awab Ishak had made numerous complaints to the council, but were simply told to paint over it. The council issued a statement saying it was no longer tenable for Gareth Swarbrick to stay on. The government has welcomed the decision, but says the board still has questions to answer. FIFA's president has defended the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar and tried to show empathy during a news conference.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Gianni Infantino's comments follow heavy criticism of Doha's treatment of migrant workers and LGBTQ people. He says he's compassionate towards all groups. He's also accused the West of hypocrisy, telling European nations they have a lot to answer for.
I'm European. Actually, I am European. Not just I feel European. I think for what we Europeans have been doing in the last 3,000 years around the world, we should be apologizing for the next 3,000 years before starting to give moral lessons.
Human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell told GB News the tournament should never have been given to Qatar, and anyone connected with it risks damaging their reputation.
Well, I think it's really shameful that celebrities are allowing themselves to be bought by the Qatar billions in order to put a positive spin on what is a sexist, homophobic and racist dictatorship. I mean, how can David Beckham, Robbie Williams and all these other big stars who are performing in Qatar, how can they have a clean conscience when they know what this regime is doing to people? I think it's going to cause them huge damage.
The United Nations is proposing a new fund to help developing countries cope with the cost of climate change. The money would be used to compensate 134 developing nations for the loss and damage experienced due to droughts, floods and wildfires. The text is yet to be approved by the COP27 summit in Egypt, which had to be extended after delegates failed to reach an agreement. The Foreign Secretary is warning that the threat from Iran's nuclear programme is more advanced than ever before. Speaking at a security conference in Bahrain, James Cleverly stressed Britain's determination to stop the strict Islamic country from acquiring a nuclear weapon. He also criticised Iran's rulers for supplying Russia with drones, which have been used to launch attacks against civilians in Ukraine.
As their people demonstrate against decades of oppression, Iran's rulers are spreading bloodshed and destruction across the region and as far away as Kyiv. Britain is determined to work alongside our friends to counter the Iranian threat, interdict the smuggling of conventional arms, and prevent the regime from acquiring nuclear weapons capability.
North Korea says it's accelerating the creation of nuclear weapons to counter threats from Washington. State media showed... State media showed video of a new intercontinental ballistic missile being test-fired after the country's leader warned of a fiercer military response. Kim Jong-un was also seen in public with his daughter for the first time, raising speculation she could be training for a leadership role. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens now. Let's get back to Nana.
Good afternoon. It is fast approaching 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's all kicking off in the Markle household, or not actually in their house. Their Netflix fly-on-the-wall documentary, which will net them a reported £88 million, has hit a bump in the road in true Harry and Meghan style. A TV insider told the New York Post that their director, Garrett Bradley, wanted Harry and Meghan to film at home, but the Sussexes were not comfortable with doing that, so she quit. How can you film a fly-on-the-wall documentary about how you live in somebody else's house? The Duke and Duchess of Sussex had turned to Garrett Bradley, the critically acclaimed director, after a Netflix series about the tennis star Naomi Osaka. But they reportedly clashed over the direction of the show. And Garrett is just one in a long list of people that have parted ways with the couple. Let's start at the beginning. There was Katrina McKeever, their senior comms secretary. She was assigned to liaise with Meghan's family. In September 2018, she was reportedly the first to go. Then in December 2018, only a few months later, there was Melissa Tuapti, Meghan's personal assistant. After the royal wedding, she could only put up with 6 months of the couple. Apparently, the royals' demands reduced her to tears, and according to sources, it was reported in the Mirror that she put up with quite a lot. Meghan put a lot of demands on her, and it ended up with her in tears. There was Meghan's PR chief, Jason Knopf. He jumped ship and went to work for Prince William and Kate. And 2 nannies quit within weeks of each other. The first was reportedly sacked, though, for being unprofessional. In fact, since Meghan Markle became the Duchess of Sussex, and only up till 2020, so that's less than 2 years, she's seen off 9 members of royal staff. And this latest incident should come as no surprise. Her new hire, Liz Garbus, who she appointed to replace Garrett, was going to be working on Meghan's awful-sounding animated series Pearl before it was rightly scrapped by Netflix. Meghan said, "It's nice to be able to trust someone with our story. A seasoned director whose work I've long admired, just like the last one. Even if it may mean that in some way the story will be told in a different way to how they're telling it. We're trusting our story to someone else, and that means it will go through their lens." Yeah, right. Let's see how long this one lasts. The Netflix documentary is expected to air within weeks. The Sussexes are reported to have tried to push it back to 2023. No chance. Netflix want their pound of flesh, and I hope it's worth it. Well, you know what I meant. It was written on the screen. If you just joined me, welcome aboard. This is GB News. Now, before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are you now prepared to vote Labour? According to the GBNews People's Poll, Labour's Sir Keir Starmer is ahead of Prime Minister Rishi Sunak when it comes to the economy, and this comes after the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt increased taxes and decreased public spending in his autumn statement. Economists have described it as Brownite, accusing the Tory party of veering more towards the left. So are you, the British public, prepared to now vote Labour? Then at 4:50, it's obviously time for our Royal Roundup, and royal biographer Angela Levin will be in the studio to take us through all the happenings in the palace. And on the menu, King Charles won't give his younger brother Prince Edward the Duke of Edinburgh title giveaway, despite the late Queen's promise. That's according to reports. And of course, the latest on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Then at 5 o'clock, it's Difficult Conversations. Campaigner and activist Rosamond Adu-Kisudebra will be in the studio. Now, Rosamond's 9-year-old daughter Ella tragically passed away a decade ago due to air pollution. Her mother is urging the government to fast forward its plans to improve air quality from 2040 to 2030 in order to prevent other fatalities. A similar nature just recently, an incident of a similar nature recently happened where a 2-year-old boy died as a result of mould in his flat. No child should ever be put in that sort of circumstance. That's all on the way in the next hour. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome to my panel broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter, father Calvin Robinson. Right, so welcome both. Nice to see you. Oh, I love that windswept hair.
Thank you. That was because I had to run down the high street. My lovely driver got in a bit of trouble on the way here, so good to be here.
Well, you made
it. I made it.
And good to see you, Calvin, as well.
Thank you. I almost didn't make it as well.
Oh, not another one.
Got stuck up in Scotland. The trains got cancelled because of a bit of rain.
What a place to get stuck in.
I love Scotland. Scotland's beautiful.
It is beautiful,
isn't it? All right, come on. Enough of the small talk. What about Meghan Markle? Who wants to go first?
Well, shall I go for it?
Go on,
well, look, they go through more stuff than I go through cups of teas, don't they? I mean, I just think then they can't be very nice. They can't be very... I mean, why do their staff not want to work with them? There are so many. I know Angela Kelly, who was the dresser for the Queen, worked for the Queen for over 25 years. These guys seem to hemorrhage staff every, alarming rate, nearly like every month. There's something going on. There is a problem. But you know what Meghan's like? She will never look at herself and think it's about herself. She'll always blame other people. It's, she's always the victim. But there is a real problem here. I'm sorry. I mean, we've got the list, as you said, of the amount of staff that have stepped away. Catherine St. Laurent stepped down from Archwell as well. She was the Chief of Staff, Executive Director. She couldn't bear it. She couldn't bear any more.
Well, I mean, obviously, this has all been reported, so it's widely known.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been challenged, so we have to assume. I mean, there's Tom Bower's book as well, Revenge. I read that. It was fabulous. I read that, and I'm reading all the royal books. And it is interesting that there are a lot of people who don't have anything particularly nice to say about the couple. But then Tom did say, when he was being interviewed by Dan in Dan's show, that actually... when he did approach people who were probably friendly with the couple, they wouldn't speak. They didn't want to speak, because obviously they didn't want to say anything about the couple, so to give anything at all away. So that could be one of the reasons why the book kind of only has negative things to say, a lot of negative things. He does say some positive things. Calvin, what's your thoughts?
There's been a lot of accusations of bullying on Meghan's part. But I think Harry has to take some of the blame too.
Of course.
He can't let his wife bully the staff like that. He's a man who's used to having lots of staff around, lots of help. He's grown up that way, so he should be encouraging her and showing her the proper way to treat people who are working for you. It's about manners, it's about etiquette, and she doesn't really seem to understand it. But also, I find it interesting that they're trying to keep pushing back that Netflix documentary because they know they're going to get slated for it. They're being absolutely slaughtered because it's going to bring the Queen into disrepute, the royal family into disrepute. They're not going to be liked very well.
Well, they're going to get a massive backlash from it, aren't they?
They've taken the money, haven't they?
But yeah, they want the money, but they don't want to do the work.
Well, we have, but to be fair to them, we haven't seen this thing yet. I mean, it's the fly on the wall thing. We haven't seen the book. They could say some positive things, but I don't. It would be changing the habit of a lifetime.
Well, yeah. Look at their back. Their track record. It is, awful. And there's Harry wanting to be this international private person, yet is doing all of this and wanting to be like a celebrity. They're like trying to be the Kardashians, but want the money for it, but don't want to do the work for it.
Well, they've signed their souls up now. I mean, it's literally professional victimhood victimhood, isn't it? I mean, how can you're so wealthy, you've got everything, the world at your feet, you're still whinging, for goodness sake.
Oh.
Well, especially after what the Crown has done to the family as well, and the way they painted the Queen, as well as Prince Harry's mother. They should be stepping away from Netflix at this point, but if they're not, if they're taking the money instead of standing by their principles, it shows more about their character than anything else.
Do you think that they actually feel, oh, look, they're having a go at us again, so actually their perception of what's going on is that they're kind of the... Well, obviously it is, but do you think that they only see themselves in the eyes that the press are having a pound of flesh out of them, and so they might as well sell it rather than give it away? Do you think that's actually the way they're looking at it and not seeing the sort of negative impact in a sense how that it's affecting the family? And
yeah, perhaps, but they should be more stoic. They should have a stiff upper lip and just kind of put the press to one side and get on with their private lives in private.
And why is it always about them? They're always whinging, always moaning. I'm sorry, everyone is bored stiff of it. They really are. And, you know, please, Harry, he looks so miserable. He looks absolutely miserable these days. Doesn't look like the same Harry we used to know.
I think that's probably him.
I thought, what happened to privacy, though? I thought that's what they wanted. I thought they were going to go away on a beach and eat avocados and do, you know, yoga.
Well, no, that didn't work out because they didn't get much money for that.
Well,
they realised that they weren't going to get anything. And perhaps Meghan didn't think that when you're the prince that you actually don't really have any money. I think she saw it as castles and princesses and money and gold and all that, and she realised that actually Prince Harry, the monarchy are, you know, they're beholden to us as the public, and they take from us. Yeah, where I'm happy to contribute towards it, but I wouldn't be happy to contribute to them at all.
It's quite a privileged life, but they have to do the job in order to earn that privilege, and she didn't want to do the job, so she doesn't get the privilege.
She didn't want to work, and I'm sorry, they're both, as I said, look at their track record, both hypocritical. 21 jets over the last couple of years. They seem to be the professor of everything, talking about climate change and you know what. I mean, I think, quite frankly, everyone's had enough of them, and please stop the moaning and the whinging. I do feel very sorry for some of the staff and love to really know what went on there.
Well, they call themselves the Sussex survivors, so I know there are other books that are worthy of reading to find out more. And it'll be interesting if the couple turn litigious on these people who are writing books about them, or whether they simply do nothing. I know Angela said that there's a certain window of time, so I think it's about 18 months or something before they can do anything or sue anybody or do anything. So it will be quite interesting to see whether they dare.
Well, look, let's see what happens, but I'm afraid, Don, you can't take the money and not do the work. It's not like that.
So you're going to watch the documentary?
Well, of course! I think we should all watch it together.
Yeah.
Take notes.
Let's get some cake. Beer and tea. Popcorn. Are you going to watch it, Carl?
Yeah, absolutely.
I bet you are going to watch it as well.
Fancy a laugh.
The Crown.
The Crown, I don't watch that. I can't watch that. Well, my problem with that is that the people in it are still alive. You can't write stuff about people who are alive and make it up. That's to me, I don't understand why these people aren't being sued for it.
Yeah.
They did that about me, they're trouble. As long as they look nice.
It's good TV, though.
I haven't watched it. I can't watch it. I can't bring myself to it.
No.
Anyways, what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear what you think. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, it is time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, are you now prepared to vote Labour? According to the GB News People poll, Labour's Sir Keir Starmer is trusted more with the economy than Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Although, to be fair, is that saying much? I mean, didn't he set this thing up the way why we are where we are is partly Rishi Sunak's plans? I mean, this comes after the Chancellor's autumn statement as well, or should we say awful statement, which saw Jeremy Hunt increase taxes and decrease public spending. And since the announcement, economists have dubbed the statement brown-eyed, accusing the Tory party of veering towards the left. So, your thoughts for the Great British Debate. Are you prepared to vote Labour? Send me your thoughts as ever, GBViews at gbnews.uk, or tell me what you think. You can also tweet me at GB News. There's a poll up right now asking, are you now prepared to vote Labour? Cast your vote, but first let's get some weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK will be mostly dry, but heavy rain will push in from the west. Here are the details. Let's start off in the southwest of England, and it will be a cloudy end to the day with some rain starting to reach western parts of Cornwall, spreading to all later. Over in the southeast, it'll be cloudy for some, with outbreaks of rain, especially in London. Other areas, though, will have a clear evening. Turning cloudier across Wales this evening, so whilst eastern parts may have some clear spells, spells, the cloud will thicken ahead of rain arriving later. Cloud and a few spots of rain are likely for the East Midlands. Meanwhile, the West Midlands should end the day on a dry and clear note before things turn wet overnight. A cloudy picture this evening for northeast England. The odd spot of rain is possible, but for many it'll be dry. Some low cloud may bring hill fog to any higher routes. Often cloudy for much of Scotland this evening, with some rain likely. Heavy rain then arriving from the west overnight, spreading to all parts and becoming impactful in the east. A very wet and windy evening for Northern Ireland. Here the rain should clear during the first part of the night, so it will be drier and clearer to start Sunday. The band of heavy rain will continue to sweep eastwards to all parts overnight, with clearer but showery weather following. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Good afternoon. If you just joined us, where have you been, for goodness sake? It's good. It's OK. You've only missed 20 minutes. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Don't forget, you can also download the GB News app. You can follow all the programmes here on the channel. Now, before the break, we were discussing the Sussexes. Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Dan says, what an awful, false, woke hypocrite Meghan is. Harry's no better. They deserve each other. Agreed. Jill says there is no Duchess in Meghan. Get rid of this title as she uses it for TV and media. Lose the title. Well, we'll speak to Andrew Levin. Andrew Levin will be in later for the Royal Roundup. Apparently, we could actually do a petition as it goes to get rid of it too. But right now, it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, are you now prepared to vote Labour? As Rishi Sunak has arrived in Kyiv to meet the President Zelensky, in a bid to show that the UK remains fully committed to backing Ukraine in the war, back at home, the Chancellor continues to receive backlash at the announcement of his autumn statement. Now, during the speech to the Commons, Jeremy Hunt was quick to push the rhetoric of sound money. But what is sound about record tax burdens, the highest since the aftermath of the Second World War? What is sound about a welfare bill which is set to soar by £90 billion? And what is sound about fuel duty being expected to rise by 23% next year, adding 12p a litre to the cost of petrol and diesel? High taxes, high welfare spending, high crime levels and high immigration levels, both legal and illegal. This all begs the question, what's the difference between the Tories and Labour? Our GB News People's Poll asked which of the following options would be best to manage the economy in the years ahead. 42% said that they don't know. 30% said Labour, and Starmer as Prime Minister at 17%, and a Conservative government with Prime Minister Sunak suggesting Labour are trusted more on the economy than the Tories. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are people now prepared to vote Labour? Are you prepared to vote Labour? I'm joined by former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie. Kelvin, thank you so much for joining me. Right, so let's start with it. What do you make of Sunak? Rishi Sunak, he's rushed over to Kyiv. He's trying to repeat the sort of Boris-type thing. Is this a good thing? Do you feel it's going to pan out well for him? Or is he running away?
Well, I mean, the basis of your question was, are you prepared to vote Labour? And the answer is, no, I would literally rather cut off all my extremities and feed them to a load of camels in Qatar right now than do that. But what I do think is that I think you've got to understand ordinary people will be absolutely baffled by what this is, the introduction of all this. First of all, the Tories have had, I don't know whether they are Tory or not. It was always very difficult to understand whether Cameron was or May was. I think Boris was slightly, but he was a giveaway Charlie. Then we had a couple of disasters. And I'm not sure where Sunak is. Is he a chief financial officer who's been promoted to CEO and can't do it? Who knows? But I tell you what I do think. I am massively, massively hostile to the idea that universal credit goes up by 10.1%, because it is coming out of the pockets of the ordinary working families who Jeremy Hunt has now discovered after many years of wandering around in the Tory party. I mean, the truth about the matter is, by the way, Jeremy Hunt is almost certain going to be slung out in Farnham because they've split his constituency. And he didn't have much chance in Farnham anyway because of the way that the swing's working against the Conservatives. And so he's going to be out of a job. If the Tories get destroyed in the manner that I think they're going to be destroyed, Rishi will be out of a job. So within 2 years, the two architects of this, what I believe is not a total disaster, but a massive problem for our country, will not be around anymore. I mean, how many more chancellors have we got to get through? He's the fourth one. We'll have had 5 chancellors in basically, well, about 18 months. Our country is on its backside. And unfortunately, I'm a natural Conservative. I did vote for Blair in 97, so I'll just put that out there so that people can start sending vile tweets at me. But now, did you see that Hunt has announced that couple of old war horses they've dug up, Patricia Hewitt, who was a cabinet minister for Labour 2001-2007, and Sir Michael Barber, who has been hanging around like a bad smell around education for most of his life. And by the way, what's he got to be proud about in that? Have now both been hired by Hunt to do various skills job and looking after social side for Patricia Hewitt. What on earth is Hunt doing, hiring Labour apparatchiks, right, to run a Conservative party? It is preposterous. I honestly wonder who the Conservatives now think they are. It's difficult to be able to say for certain who is a Conservative. I think it's easier if you're a socialist because you simply say, I'm against that lot. But the Conservatives, I mean, I am, but are ordinary people going to be against it? They are going to face a catastrophe in 24, the like of which 97 will be nothing compared to what's heading their way. And do you know what? The Conservative leadership deserves it. The people that don't deserve it are ordinary working class Tory or middle class voters. Why are the middle classes? You see, the rich, it doesn't affect the rich. They're too rich. And the skint are going to be better off under this. Why? Why don't we try to force them? Why aren't we trying to force these people out of benefits, off welfare? And isn't it amazing how many people are now ill? They're either physically ill or they're mentally ill. And so when you have these, quotes, job coaches who say to them, well, Tommy, now, how are you? How did you get on with that job at Amazon? Oh, you had a rather serious flu and they said that your sickness record wasn't good enough and got slung out. You know, these guys know how to play the system. Now, I know it sounds odd, this, but we cannot afford to be a massively liberal democracy when we are totally skint. We need workers. We need workers. I mean, to be honest with you, you could almost get to the position where we might as well take those guys in from the channel and give them work.
Well,
because we're going to bring in 200,000 a year from outside anyway. But there is something gone fundamentally wrong with the Conservative Party.
Well, perhaps that's what they want us to do, to take on lots of cheap labour. It feels that way to me. But with response to Patricia Hewitt and Sir Michael Barber, I mean, Jeremy Hunt said that he didn't care what party they came from. It's just the best person for the job. So that's what he was saying, that he should be able to cross party lines with regard to that. But the bottom line is they seem to be mashing into each other by taking people from the Labour Party, which is fine if he wants to do that. It seems like it's just one party. I mean, we wanted to get somebody else on to add balance, but they are almost exactly the same.
Right. Yes. Well, they're morphing into it. Can you honestly think that Patricia Hewitt, who was viewed as a dud in the Labour administration, in the Blair administration, she hung around for about 6 years or so, and I'm not saying she doesn't pour a nice cup of tea or can probably doesn't smear peas onto the side of a knife. But what I am saying is we do need a tough view going forward. Who is going to address the physical health issue? Everybody and their wife seems to have long COVID anymore. We uniquely in Europe, and by the way, uniquely in the United States and Canada as well, have more people going sick now that are not being able to work, not looking for work, than any other major European and North American democracy. Why is that? Forget about trying to work out how to make social care work. And why shouldn't people give up their houses, by the way? After all, it's an investment. The only people trying to stop you giving up your houses are the kids, because they want a free ride in the same way as the 5 million who aren't getting any work anymore.
No, I don't think you should have to give up your house. You've worked all this time, you've worked really hard, and at the end of it, you're going to have to sell your house to be in a care home next to somebody who's simply been on benefits for a lot of it. So why did you bother in the first place? There was no point. That's the thing.
Well, my own view about that is that people should actually have made appropriate financial assessment of their position, but if they're likely to get ill. So either take some insurance or do something like that. I have no idea why every single form of subsidy has to go on the middle classes right now. That stuff by Paul Johnson, the IFS stuff, right, was fantastic. It's the first time I have ever agreed with an economist, which, as you know, Nana, is actually designed to make astrologers look good. They normally get it completely bloody wrong. This is the first time that I've ever heard an economist actually say something I wholly agree with. The middle classes are going to take it bang in the wallet. And why should people, supposing somebody's on like 30 grand, 35 grand, and his or her partner's on, we'll say, 30 grand, they're 65,000 a year. Why on earth should 38% of their pay packet go to helping out a load of idle people claiming either mental or physical health?
Well, hang on, Calvin. Listen, Calvin, we're running out of time, but I agree with you. It is stacked to the middle class, those who work very hard. Doesn't seem to be much in it for them, and it does seem to be supporting those who are on benefits and so on and so forth. But that's what they said they would do, and it appears they have done it. Calvin Mackenzie, thank you so much for joining me. It's really good to talk to you. That is Calvin Mackenzie. He's the former editor of The Sun. Right, let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Elliot says, I'm always willing to vote for any party that puts forward a good set of ideas on how they can build a better Britain, be that Labour, the Tories or anyone else. Mark says, no, I'm now ready to vote for the Reform Party. If not now, when? And Ken says, I am going to vote Reform UK, Conservative values without the woke. Right, so what will you do? What do you think? Will you now vote Labour? You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are people now prepared to vote Labour? Are you now prepared to do that? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel. Broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter Father Calvin Robinson. Then stay with me, because at 5 o'clock in this week's Difficult Conversation, campaigner and activist Rosamund Adukisudebra will be here in the studio. Rosamund's 9-year-old daughter Ella tragically passed away a decade ago, and she was the first person in the country to have air pollution listed as the cause of her death after suffering from a fatal asthma attack. Her mother is calling upon the government to change their goal of reducing air pollution by 2040 down to 2030. And just recently, it was also concluded that a 2-year-old boy died as a result of mould in his flat. Rosamond will be live in the studio. Make sure you join me there. First, though, let's get an update with your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 4:34. I'm Bethany Elsey here to bring you up to date on GB News. The UK is boosting its support for Ukraine, pledging a £50 million package of air defence aid. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed the move during an unannounced visit to Kyiv. He told President Volodymyr Zelensky the UK will continue to stand with the country as it fights to end the barbarous war.
Your homes, your hospitals, your power stations are being destroyed by the air. So to help you defend yourselves, we are today providing new air defence support, including 120 anti-aircraft guns, radar and anti-drone equipment. We're extending our training for the Ukrainian armed forces to include specialist expertise from UK medics and engineers. And we are stepping up our support to help you through the cold, hard winter ahead.
The chief executive of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing has been sacked after a 2-year-old boy died following prolonged exposure to mould. An inquest heard how the parents of Awab Ishaq had made numerous complaints to the council, but were simply told to paint over it. The council issued a statement saying it was no longer tenable for Gareth Swarbrick to stay on. The government has welcomed the decision, but says the board still has questions to answer. FIFA's president has defended the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar and tried to show empathy during a news conference.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Gianni Infantino's comments follow heavy criticism of Doha's treatment of migrant workers and LGBTQ people. He says he's compassionate towards all groups. He's also accused the West of hypocrisy, telling European nations they have a lot to answer for. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Don't go anywhere. Nana will be back in just a second.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good afternoon. It is fast approaching 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. If you've just joined us, this is GB News. We are the People's Channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are you now prepared to vote Labour? Now, during his speech to the Commons, Jeremy Hunt was quick to push the rhetoric of sound money in his autumn statement. But what is sound about record tax burdens, the highest since the aftermath of the Second World War? What is sound about a welfare bill which is set to soar by £90 billion? What is sound about fuel duty being expected to rise by 23% next year, adding 12 pence a litre to the cost of petrol and diesel? High taxes, high welfare spending, crime levels up right there, high immigration levels, both legal and illegal. This all begs the question, what is the difference between the Tories and the Labour Party? And our GB News People's poll asked which of the following options would be best to manage the British economy in the years ahead. 42% of you said you don't know. 30% of you said Labour with Starmer as Prime Minister, and only 17% said a Conservative government with Prime Minister Sunak. That suggests that Labour are more trusted on the economy than the Tories. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are you now prepared to vote Labour? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy, also GB News presenter Father Calvin Robinson. Right, who went first last time? It was you, Lizzie. I start with Cal this time.
I pushed in.
Go on, Calvin, because also with you, with your Conservative credentials as well.
Yes.
I mean, they're the same. Bear that in mind.
I would never vote Labour.
But they're the same, literally.
They are the same. Labour is the party of high taxes, but the Conservatives are
who are they?
The Conservatives are the party of higher taxes. That's the problem. I can't vote Conservative at the moment, but I would never in my life vote Labour. People are forgetting there's Reform, Reclaim, the SDP, UKIP, Heritage, all very good parties, all very good options for people that want actually Conservative policies and Conservative governments.
But they've got two hopes, Bob Hope and no hope.
Only if we focus on voting for Labour because we don't want the Conservatives and voting for the Conservatives because we don't vote for Labour, then of course we end up in the same mess that we're always in, and we have ourselves to blame. We have to stop doing that. If we all said, OK, we're going to stop it, we're going to vote for the smaller parties now, we're going to vote for Reform, we're going to vote for Reclaim, then they would get in. It's as simple as that. That's how our system works.
It does in theory, but in practice people go, but if I vote for them, there's one vote away from the Conservative Party, and actually if I vote for Reform or any of the others, it's actually a vote for Labour, because they're not going to get in. So then people go, well, I've got to vote for the Conservative Party, because otherwise they're the only ones that could potentially...
People have got to be braver and stronger and actually have some principles and vote with those principles.
But it's spread out, though, so if some go for Reform, some go for Reclaim, some go for...
These smaller parties
go
need to
for that.
work together. That's something that I've been trying to work on for
Well, they're not going to.
I'm going to start my own party, I've decided.
Will
you vote for me?
A house party, yay, let's all dance.
Well, it's got to be better than this bunch. I mean, watching that autumn statement, awful statement, and I'm sorry, I was watching Jeremy Hunt next to Rishi, and I thought, hold on a minute, these two multi-millionaires letting our country go down the toilet. Thank you very much. And you know what? Traditional Conservative voters are in political wilderness because they got this. What's between Labour and Conservative? A cigarette paper. They are the same party. And I actually blame Cameron, because when he came into power, he changed, didn't he, the party to the light blue, bringing his liberal ideology. And then you've got all the Blairites and Cleggites that try to get in and thinking it will make the party more electable. But now they no longer know what a Tory stands for, and it isn't what the Conservative voter now is like lost. I mean, it's not Conservative as we know it.
Well, they had Liz Truss, who was actually Conservative, who came up with some great policies. I thought, OK, her delivery wasn't the best, but, that's not punishable by removal. But unfortunately for them, it was.
Well, I think a lot of people will be wishing she was still there.
Of course they do. I'm having Liz Truss flashbacks.
I'm missing the I never thought I'd say this. I'm missing the letters because we want growth. What have we got now? And all Jeremy Hunt doing, as Kelvin said, is hurting the middle.
I'm sorry, but
squeezing the middle.
He gave this announcement.
Taxing us.
There were so many stealth taxes that he didn't put in his statement, or that he worded in a clever way. That only after the statement, only after the press picked up on it, we learned what they're all about. That is snaky behaviour. Be open, be transparent, let the people know how you're going to tax them if you're going to tax them.
But what about the Labour Party? I mean, Rachel Reeves was quite I listened to her response, and she was quite good. There was one thing when she sort of blamed Liz Truss for part of the mess, and I thought that's too deep to be blaming that.
The Labour Party can't even define what a woman is. They're absolute loons. You cannot vote for them.
Very true. And what is their plan? What do Labour actually stand for? I mean, Keir Starmer never ever says. He sits on the fence anymore, he gets splinters up there. Honestly, and Rachel Reeves, I saw her, but they won't answer. What are they going to do with security, energy, how we're going to grow? They're going to be left with this big black hole. What are Labour going to do about it?
Well, that's the problem. See, the problem is they are so similar, and I don't know which one is actually worse. And I'm beginning to think that the Conservative Party are slightly worse, and that's the thing. Even I'm looking at it and thinking, well, if I vote for Reform or Reclaim, they're not going to get in because they're too small. It's the same old thing.
Do it.
No. If I vote for the Green Party, well, they're not going to get in. They've been around. What's going to happen? The Liberal Democrats, are they still here? I mean, I don't even know. I mean, is their banner yellow or orange? They don't even know. So it's like, what is left? The only thing left is the Conservative Party, and I'm afraid I cannot stand the way they're behaving.
No.
I don't like the way Jeremy Hunt delivered any of that. I don't like the way they deposed of Boris. I don't like the way they treated Liz Truss. I think it was
they're still doing it to Suella Braverman right now.
And now they're trying to get rid of somebody else, Suella Braverman. I want them to stop. They won't, and the only way to is remove them. But who?
They can't just be removed. They need to be destroyed. They need to be decimated.
Well, in the elections, yes.
But why are we suffering? Why is the British taxpayer? The British taxpayer is the one that's suffering, right? That's the British taxpayer which is suffering because of their stupid policies. And sorry, we're in this lockdown crisis. I'm blaming Rishi. He was Chancellor. I'm sorry. He parachuted into number 10 in his Prada suit, and he was the one that had us in lockdowns, furloughing companies like Victoria Beckham's company. I'm sorry, and have they recouped the money for that? No, they haven't.
Do you know for sure that they haven't?
No, they haven't.
Leslie, who are you going to vote for?
Do you know what? You've made me think about your lot.
I know what's come to mind.
I might.
You've had a quick look and you've just seen Andy Burnham in your life.
If Andy Burnham was to come in for Labour, I possibly would. I did vote Labour once, like Calvin. It was for Tony Blair. Biggest mistake I ever did. Took us to war on a lie.
Not me.
Cost us. No.
The other Calvin.
Calvin. Yeah, and you know, look what Tony Blair did to this country, which was still painful.
He was good at the beginning, but unfortunately got a bit too big for his boots.
I think he was the worst Prime Minister we've had in living memory.
Well, a lot of people would say...
I think he destroyed the country in a lot of ways.
But he had the charisma that, unfortunately, Rishi doesn't have. And he had that sort of trickery, that sort of charming nature.
Charm was a lie.
Charm is the devil, yeah.
Charm is a lie, and he took us to war on a lie. Don't forget that. And, and also, the civil servants nearly went on strike under Tony Blair. I don't know if you remember that.
Well, I wish they would go on strike so we could get rid of half of them, and a lot of them not doing anything at all.
They're talking about it, aren't they?
Well, then we can see how little they actually do, and that's not all of them. There's some very good ones, but I'm sorry, but the way the Home Office are behaving, and they haven't processed all the applications.
But the immigration, we've got 40,000 people here. What are we going to do about it? Don't keep making these minor adjustments, giving the French money.
Well, they're not going to fix it.
What are they going to do?
Jeremy Hunt said we need more immigration to boost the economy. They're talking about more immigration at this point when we already have too much.
Well, they want us to go back to the thing with cheap labour, don't they? Because if they then decide to use a lot of the economic migrants, then they can then start to plummet down wages and keep wages nice and low. Big business benefits. And what was the point of Brexit?
Well, I'm sorry. We've got hope. Let's hope they do something. But I'm sorry, with Jeremy Hunt there, welcome to hell. Sorry.
Well, that's it. So are you going to vote Labour then? Or what are you going to do?
Well, I am thinking about it, but I've just been talking to lovely Calvin here, and I think I could possibly vote for Reform,
Interesting.
Maybe we need something different. We need a change.
We need a
change as good as the rest.
Well, let's see what our viewers think, because the show's nothing without them. So let's welcome, and our listeners, of course, let's welcome our great British voices. Your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you think about the topics we're discussing. This hour, should we head to... Where should we go? Tain? Tain? Where's Tain? I've never been to Tain before.
Tain?
Oh, that sounds lovely. Let's go to Jonathan Jones in Tain. Where's that? Oh, he's in the darkness. That's where he is.
Oh, he's got a
in
mug.
Scotland. Oh, it's lovely. Why is it so dark there? What time is it?
Jonathan's got a mug.
Have you been nicking our mugs? They've all gone. We've hardly got any left.
It's on a tea tour in the north of Scotland, Nana.
Oh, lovely. Lovely.
And do you know what? Tea up here tastes delicious in a GB News mug, I can tell you that.
Oh, I love it, Jonathan. It's so good. You need to send us some of that Tregotham tea. Right, Jonathan, so what do you think of this? Are you ready now, looking at the way it is? I mean, they are practically the Labour Party.
I would never say never, Nana. I mean, one thing in life, you can talk about your tea, but you never talk about politics. And talking to the locals here, they would say vote for Labour would be completely wasted because it's SNP or Conservatives up here, otherwise you're lost. But, you know, back at home in Cornwall, it's the whole county's blue. And there may be a bit of complacency with that. So you can never say never.
So your thoughts are that people are going to stick with the Conservatives, even though there's this ghastly spring or autumn or awful statement that we're calling it now. I mean, do you really think people are going to stick with this?
Well, I think there's a lot of moaning going on. Right behind me is a lovely mix of renewable energy and gas and, you know, fossil fuels. I think that the extremists that we're hearing at the moment, and we just need a bit more balance in the debate. And I think that's being lost. I think we all just need to sit down over the nation's favourite drink, you know, national drink, and have a much more reasoned debate like you guys are leading right now. I think it's fantastic that you're starting to discuss these things and, you know, hold to account these people that are supposed to be running the country.
Well, Jonathan, it's really good to talk to you. And enjoy yourself in Tain there in Scotland. It looks lovely. And cheers to you.
It's a tea tasting extraordinaire.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Jonathan. That's Jonathan Jones. He's there in Scotland in Tain. And he's a great British voice. Lovely to speak to him. Well, today I've been asking, are you now prepared to vote Labour? Let's see what you've been saying, because quite a few of you have been in touch with your views. Tony says, Labour and Conservatives are two sides of the same coin. Time to vote for another party. John says, why would I vote Labour? They're the same as the Tories, but worse. James says, I would absolutely not vote for Labour. I could never vote for Starmer, who refused to honour the result of the Brexit referendum. There was that, I suppose. Although he has sort of since rolled back and said that he now realises that he's not going to tackle that one. There's a poll up right now on Twitter throughout the show asking, are you now prepared to vote Labour? And currently, 15% of you say yes, 85% of you say no. What will it take for the Tories to do for you to change your minds? Or perhaps you're going to vote for somebody else. Keep your thoughts coming. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua on GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, Royal Roundup time with Royal biographer Angela Levin. She'll be live in the studio. And on the menu, King Charles won't give his younger brother Prince Edward the Duke of Edinburgh title, despite the late Queen's promise. That is according to reports. Meanwhile, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are set to receive a Human Rights Award, but critics are up in arms. That's on the way after this.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV.
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
Hello, good afternoon. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome on board. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. We are the People's Channel. Now it's time for our Royal Roundup, because there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. It seems that Prince Edward is likely to take on his father's title and become the Duke of Edinburgh, given that King Charles is planning to slim down the monarchy. And as always, Harry and Meghan are in the news. They are set to receive a Human Rights Award for their fight against racial injustice. How could I miss that on my monologue? I should have done it on that. Oh, my goodness. But critics have slammed the move, with some dubbing it a bewildering choice. I'll do one tomorrow. So each Saturday, I love to give you a rundown, and who better to do that for us than Angela Levin, royal biographer. She's here in the studio. Angela, right, where should we start? Where should we start?
Well, we could start with the Duke of Edinburgh title, which is a very important title. And for decades, it's always gone down to the heir of the throne. Prince Philip got the title on the evening before, actually on today's date, the same date, in 1943, when he married the Queen. And but he obviously decided that Prince Edward should get it rather than Prince Charles. But it's now gone to Prince Charles since his death, and there's rumours that he's not going to give it to his younger brother. I don't necessarily think that's true, because he has made it a Councillor of State, which means that Prince Edward can stand in for him if he's not well or he's abroad, so he doesn't have to use Harry or Andrew. He's also going to the royal hoo-ha that comes out, you know, all the sort of actors and singers and things. I've forgotten what it's called, but the royal... It's a real sort of huge royal do, very important, and royals always go. And he asked Edward if he would go to that too. So he obviously needs him, and I can't imagine that he would do that, because I think Edward would really like it. What I think we have to do is to wait until the coronation happens and then see, and that's the time when you deliver titles to
Because you don't really hear much about Edward, actually. Does he do much?
Yes, he does a lot, but they're quiet. He and his wife are quiet. They go to lots of charities, they travel abroad, and they do a lot of hard work without making a big to-do about it.
Unlike some.
Unlike some, yes. I'd like to talk about unlike some.
Yes, so Harry and Meghan, let's talk about it. What's going on with them?
I just heard, just before I came in, that a Labour MP put up a removal of titles bill for the House of Commons.
We said we were going to do that, Angela. They've got in, they heard us. Really?
Yes. And the reason is she's a Labour MP from York, and it's so many people in York don't want Andrew to use their home title for his anymore, and so that might go through. It's going to be heard for the second time, December the 9th. But if that happens, then it means it could also be used for Harry and Meghan, and King Charles can now make up his own mind about whether he does that.
I wonder who the MP for Sussex is. We'll have to find out.
No, York.
Oh, no,
York.
But I'm thinking for the Sussexes.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay,
I'm ahead of you, Angela.
Yeah, but they can do it with anyone. They could just have, once they've got the OK on that, they can use it. So it'll be very interesting, I think, to see what the documentary on Netflix will be like, which is coming out in December, and also what Prince Harry's book will be like, which is coming out at the beginning of January. So if he's going to attack the royals and attack his father and attack his stepmother a lot, maybe this will be used to actually say, cheerio.
But do you think that perhaps, you see, we're slightly addicted now to watching it all, this whole thing unfold? So whatever they chuck out at us, we'll still buy, we'll still watch, even if they don't have the titles.
Yes, that's right. But I think that they won't like that. They will be very upset. But you can't have your cake and actually spit it out, can you? You've got to actually, if you criticise the monarchy endlessly and think how awful it is and everybody's trapped who's in there, why do you want to hold the title? If it's just so you can earn money, that's not right. You can't use the royal titles to earn money for yourself. They're going now into a sort of media range, aren't they? They're doing things very grandly to earn money through the media. That's what their aim is at the moment.
They might as well just get on with that, really. I mean, because we don't want to hear them getting on and slagging off the royal family anymore. They should just get on and do some media stuff. If they want to try and be ambassadors for something that they're no good at anyway, then they should just carry on with that.
Yes, but they seem to need to do that, actually. I think it gives them adrenaline running.
Money.
Adrenaline as well as money.
Angela, it's gotta be money.
Adrenaline. It gets them going and they get all angry and, you know, they feel energetic. I think that's... that might very well be stopped. We'll have to see.
Well, I hope so. Now, what about The Jungle? I don't know whether you're watching it or not. Are you watching The Jungle?
Well,
You've been watching it, haven't you?
I haven't been watching it faithfully. I've been watching it a bit. And my feelings about Mike Tindall are getting more and more disapproving.
No, actually, he's wonderful.
I hate to see him in that tiny little swimming costume that barely covered him. And looked really as if it was a woman's knickers. I thought it was shocking. I did.
But he's just doing what they're doing. I mean, they're in a very hot jungle. That is the sort of thing everybody else is wearing. He has to do that.
No, they're not, actually. They're wearing something that's...
you mean he's wearing little budgie...
Tiny.
I haven't seen it.
And I think that actually he's opening up too much about his mother-in-law when he tore his trousers and you could see his pants and it said, you know, take a bite or something similar.
Oh, no.
She said, I think I'll skip on this one. I mean, she's a sport, but I can't imagine that she would like to be treated like that, really, frankly. I think he's not really representing the family. People say, oh, he's helped the royal family get popular where they haven't been popular, but I don't think so. I think it's quite... destructive of the
Do you think,
family.
well, you know, he's like a peripheral sort of royal anyway, so he's kind of on the edge of it.
Yeah, he's very much on the edge.
He's not going out and spouting horrible things about them.
No.
So it's all right. But
He fits very well, and he is on the edge, but actually he's very welcome within the inner circle. I mean, he doesn't have a title, but he has an awful lot to do with the family socially.
Well, listen, Angela, it's lovely to talk to you as usual. Lovely for that lovely royal roundup. That's, of course, Angela Levin. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. More in the next hour. It's 5 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We are the People's Channel. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. Now, coming up in this hour, this week's difficult conversation. I'll be speaking to a mother who lost her daughter as a result of pollution. And for the Great British Debate this hour, is it worth keeping the pensions triple lock? All of that on the way after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 1 minute past 5. I'm Bethany Elsey, here to bring you up to date on GB News. The UK is boosting its support for Ukraine, pledging a £50 million package of air defence aid. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed the move during an unannounced visit to Kyiv. He told President Volodymyr Zelensky the UK will continue to stand with the country as it fights to end Russia's barbarous war.
Your homes, your hospitals, your power stations are being destroyed by the air. So to help you defend yourselves, we are today providing new air defence support, including 120 anti-aircraft guns, radar and anti-drone equipment. We're extending our training for the Ukrainian armed forces to include specialist expertise from UK medics and engineers. And we are stepping up our support to help you through the cold, hard winter ahead.
The chief executive of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing has been sacked after a 2-year-old boy died following prolonged exposure to mould. An inquest heard how the parents of Awab Ishaq had made numerous complaints to the council, but were simply told to paint over it. The council issued a statement saying it was no longer tenable for Gareth Swarbrick to stay on. The government has welcomed the decision, but says the board still has questions to answer. 4 men have been arrested as part of a significant police operation into paramilitary activity in Belfast. Detective Chief Superintendent Andy Hill says a number of weapons and devices were seized.
During the searches, we found 8 firearms, a large quantity of assorted ammunition, 3 pipe bombs, which we suspect are viable, balaclavas and UVF emblems and flags. East Belfast UVF continues to be involved in a range of paramilitary crime, including violence, intimidation, money laundering and drug dealing, causing harm to their own communities.
FIFA's president has defended the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar and tried to show empathy during a news conference.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Gianni Infantino's comments follow heavy criticism of Doha's treatment of migrant workers and LGBTQ people. He says he's compassionate towards all groups. He also accused the West of hypocrisy, telling European nations they have a lot to answer for.
I'm European. Actually, I am European. Not just I feel European. I think for what we Europeans have been doing in the last 3,000 years around the world, we should be apologizing for the next 3,000 years before starting to give moral lessons.
Human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell told GB News the tournament should never have been given to Qatar and anyone connected with it risks damaging their reputation.
Well, I think it's really shameful that celebrities are allowing themselves to be bought by the Qatar billions in order to put a positive spin on what is a sexist, homophobic and racist dictatorship. I mean, how can David Beckham, Robbie Williams and all these other big stars who are performing in Qatar, how can they have a clean conscience when they know what this regime is doing to people? I think it's going to cause them huge damage.
The Foreign Secretary is warning that the threat from Iran's nuclear programme is more advanced than ever before. Speaking at a security conference in Bahrain, James Cleverly stressed Britain's determination to stop the strict Islamic country from acquiring a nuclear weapon. He also criticised Iran's rulers for supplying Russia with drones, which have been used to launch attacks against civilians in Ukraine.
People demonstrate against decades of oppression. Iran's rulers are spreading bloodshed and destruction across the region and as far away as Kyiv. Britain is determined to work alongside our friends to counter the Iranian threat, interdict the smuggling of conventional arms, and prevent the regime from acquiring nuclear weapons capability.
North Korea says it's accelerating the creation of nuclear weapons to counter threats from Washington. State media showed video of a new intercontinental ballistic missile being test-fired after the country's leader warned of a fiercer military response. Kim Jong-un was also seen in public with his daughter for the first time, raising speculation she could be training for a leadership role. You're up to date on GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now let's return to Nana.
So, good afternoon. If you've just joined me, welcome. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. Joining me today, it's author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton and also broadcaster and journalist Danny Kelly. In fact, that was yesterday. Who writes these things, honestly? Still to come, at 5, it's time for this week's difficult conversation. Campaigner and activist Rosamund Adu-Kissi-Debrah will be in the studio. Rosamund's 9-year-old daughter Ella tragically passed away after suffering a severe asthma attack a decade ago due to air pollution. Her mother is urging the government to fast forward its plans to improve air quality from 2040 to 2030 in order to prevent other fatalities of a similar nature. And only recently, a 2-year-old boy died as a result of mould that was found in his flat. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it worth keeping the pensions triple lock? Chancellor Jeremy Hunt announced the pension triple lock would remain in place in order to protect the vulnerable after UK inflation hit a 41-year high in October. Now, this means that pension payments will rise by 10.1% next April. That's putting more money in the pockets of pensioners. However, there is a greater likelihood pensioners will be paying more taxes. So is it worth keeping the pension triple lock? Email me your thoughts as ever. gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. So it's now time for difficult conversation. Ella Adu-Kisi-Debrah was just 9 years old when she tragically passed away after suffering a severe asthma attack. She was the first person in Britain to have air pollution listed on her death certificate as one of the causes. Living conditions affecting children's health is all too pressing, especially given the story of 2-year-old Awab Ishaq passing away from mould was confirmed this week. Ella's mother, Rosamond, has been campaigning for clean air ever since. She set up the Ella Roberta Family Foundation in order to get her message across to the public, as well as aiming to help other children who are affected by asthma. Rosamond campaigned for a second coroner's inquest into the death of her daughter to find out whether air pollution played a part. After several years, the coroner determined it had in 2020. Her ardent campaigning has also led to the expansion of low-emission zones in London. And Rosamond has currently set her sights on changing the government's goal of reducing air pollution from 2040 to 2030. And I'm pleased to say that she joins me now live in the studio. Thank you very much. It's really good to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. And we've just been discussing behind the scenes. We have something massive in common, that our heritage, we're both from the Gold Coast or Ghana. And thank you for having me. It's an honour to be here, and especially to speak to the viewers, to explain why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So tell us a little bit about Ella. Talk to me about the sort of girl that she was.
Ella was my firstborn, and, we tend to push our firstborn. She was incredibly bright. She was very lively, very sporty. And she was incredibly intelligent. And I always have to say that because we focus, I think because she had asthma so badly, we tend to focus on the physical activities that she did. But although she died at 9, she had a reading age of 15. And she would now be going to university. And the reason why I say that is the close friends she had, they've all achieved incredibly well. And in September, they went to university, which was a moment for me. These milestones, you never really get used to them. You think, God, she would be doing this or she would be doing that. But, she's made history, I guess, in her own way, I guess.
Well, she'd be very, very proud of you. She would be so proud of you, wouldn't she?
Well, I don't know. I mean, my twins are there. And thank you very much for mentioning Hawab as well, because we've been discussing it in our house. And obviously, the clear distinction was his was indoor air and hers was outdoor. But at the end, it is air.
Still air.
It is air. And with Professor Kathy Noakes, we were going to be writing to the Prime Minister anyway about indoor air, but I have since got in contact with her and I said, well, now we need to add this onto it. And I used to be a teacher before Ella died. And for me, I've got to be honest, I feel this is the tip of the iceberg. And what I mean by that is teachers and doctors across the country know that some young people come from very, very difficult situations. So let's not sit here and pretend this is an isolated incident. But luckily, nobody else has died. But we know mould is something awful. And I think I've been quite saddened when people have actually said things like the father could have maybe cleaned it up. Apparently,
it's in there. These are spores. They're within the structure. You can't just clear it out like that. You actually have to literally have that taken out. It's very, very deadly.
I was told that every time someone dies, it's really going to impact me. And what I have struggled with, I think Ella got ill when she was 6. I can't imagine her as a 2-year-old having those difficulties, which he did. And I'm thinking all the times he couldn't breathe. And how scary it must have been for his parents. I haven't read too much about it because I think I know what, and I haven't looked at the picture. I've only seen the pictures in the newspaper, which desensitizes it a bit. I don't think I want to see it on the screen, because that would be a bit too much for me, actually.
Poor thing. I mean, poor, bless his sweet little heart. And really, this is, I mean, where you were in the South Circular, I used to drive around that area, and I used to be in my car, the traffic. It was honestly, if you've ever seen a traffic jam, that is a traffic jam that you'll sit in. I knew that when I was going that way on the South Circular, because I used to live in Lewisham, that I would be literally on there for a long time. I would go at any pains to avoid that. But of course, then they put in all these sort of LTN sort of neighbourhoods, which kind of diverts the traffic to other areas. So it actually makes the problem worse for those outside.
Yeah, I'm really glad you've given me the opportunity to speak about this. Look, regarding the low traffic neighbourhood, I can only speak about the one in Lewisham, because that's where I actually live. And those that drive on it know it has actually got worse. Now, my point is, if you live near an actual main road, the traffic is already bad, yet alone diverting even more traffic. And I'm not surprised this week the asthma figures have gone up again. And, you know, doctors from main hospital like King's College, they have been steadily concerned about the amount of children coming in. And yes, it is better for some if you live in one, but a lot of people don't. If you live on a main road, you can't have a school street, and to divert more traffic onto the main road is irresponsible. And that's all. I'm not about division. And one of the things I will ask again, I'm not the only one who lives. There are hundreds of thousands of people that live there. There are schools that are just off the South Circular. And actually, to be honest, most of our schools, historically, they are on main roads.
Yeah.
And we have to admit, parts of London are now gridlocked. And we know the reason why. Yes, we encourage people, short journeys, walk, cycle, but please do not block off roads that people like us who live near them, we have to inhale poisonous air. And that is what is going on. So those asthma figures are incredibly worrying. And I've been saying this all along. It's not whether I am anti-something, it's about children's health. And that is why yesterday I was in the Houses of Lords, and I would like to thank all the parties, Conservative, Labour, Greens, especially Baroness Jenny Jones, the Liberals, they are all working together. There was no objections yesterday. We had the committee stage of Ella's Law, and there were no objections about it. And the third reading will hopefully be on the 2nd of December. And I urge the government to please adopt Ella's Law, because they missed a very important deadline, Nana, about setting air quality targets on the 31st of October. We all know why, because it's been quite chaotic. But I'm not here to criticise the government. I'm asking them, it's coming up to 10 years that Ella died, and we all want to breathe clean air. And I don't know when they're going to bring the air quality targets again. But in the meantime, Ella's Law is going through. And I urge all the parties in the Commons, if they could adopt this, it will save children's lives. And the government as well. 2040 is too late.
Yeah.
It is too late. You know, what they're talking about is WHO guidelines that were 2005. And the government are trying to say to the people of United Kingdom, we can only implement them by 2040. That is 35 years later. And last year, WHO realised that people are still dying, so they've even made them even tighter. So we're not even talking about those guidelines. For me, this is about a matter of life and death. And no, it's not about my daughter. I can no longer help her. In this great capital, still between 8 and 12 children die every year from asthma. Every single year. This has to stop. There are countries like Finland, Norway, children no longer die from asthma. So there is something going wrong here. And that is why, again, I work with Mayor Khan, and that's why I want the ULAs extended. And I'm not going to get into the debates about it's a money. I come from a public health point of view. And we now know, Nana, that pollution is linked to It's linked to Alzheimer's, brain cancers, cardiovascular, strokes. So even before COVID, the waiting list stood at 4.8 million. It is getting longer and longer, and prevention is better than cure. You don't want to read in the newspaper that I've suddenly got ill through the air I am breathing. And there are thousands and thousands of research, 70,000 bits of research, Nana, that link air pollution and health. So we are sitting on a time bomb, and unless we clean up the air, the Prime Minister has thrown more and more money at it, but unless we treat it at source, we're going to continue to become ill. And that is why I do what I do, because my daughter, like Awab, suffered, and I don't want you to suffer, me or our children.
So talk to me about the foundation.
Oh, the foundation was set up. I'm very proud of it. It was set up in my daughter's her memory. And one of the reasons why we decided to base it in Lewisham is she was so proud of being in Lewisham. And because of the South, well, we now know because of the South Circular. And we don't want other children. And one of the things I have to admit is that children who live near main roads, in general, they tend to have more respiratory illnesses. And we hope, why I am here, is to raise awareness. And that's one of the things the foundation does, is to educate the public about the impact of air pollution on health. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come here and speak to your audience about it.
Well, if people want to find out more about the foundation, where can they go to the website?
You can either find me on Twitter or the website is www.ellaroberta.org. But please, the public, look out for Ella's Law, and we might do a petition. We are going to form one, and we would really like you to sign up to ask the Prime Minister to take clean air seriously. It is an actual human right. You deserve to breathe it, and all the children in United Kingdom deserve to breathe clean air. Nobody should die in 2020 from asthma, and I hope that is the legacy I actually leave behind.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Sounds like all your friends are watching. They're ready to tell you, you're on TV News, what are you doing on there? Rosamond, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Nana.
That's Rosamond Kissy-Deborah. She's a WHO ambassador as well for Clean Air. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, coming up, it's a Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is it worth keeping the pensions triple lock? So make sure you join me. What are your thoughts? Chancellor Jeremy Hunt announced the pension triple lock would remain in place in order to protect the vulnerable after UK inflation hit a 41-year record high in October. Now, this means that pension payments will rise by 10.1% next April, putting more money in the pockets of pensioners. However, there's a greater likelihood that pensioners will also be paying more taxes. So is it actually worth keeping that triple lock? All of that after this break.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask, We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 23 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, it's time for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, is it actually worth keeping the pension triple lock? Now, the coalition government first introduced the triple lock in 2010, and the purpose of the lock was to ensure that the state pension did not lose value over time through a guarantee that each year the state pension would rise by the highest of either average earnings, inflation measured by the CPI, or by 2.5%. In the Chancellor's autumn statement, excuse me, Jeremy Hunt announced the pension triple lock would remain in order to protect the vulnerable after UK inflation hit a 41-year high in October. So this means that the pension payments will increase by 10.1% next April, as pension credits will also rise in line with inflation. Now, according to the OBR, or Office of Budget Responsibility, pension payments will increase by 30% in the next 6 years, which means there is a much higher likelihood that state pensions will go above the personal tax allowance. So it will mean that more pensioners could be made to pay the 21% basic rate of income tax. So in the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it worth keeping the pensions triple lock? I'm joined now by former Conservative MP Edwina Currie. Edwina, thank you so much for joining me. Nice to see you. Now, OK, so first of all, do you think the pensioners are actually getting a good deal from the autumn statement?
Well, I personally would have been perfectly happy if it had been decided that the triple lock would not be honoured this year. But that's also because over many, many years, over many decades, I saved into a personal pension. I claimed the tax relief on the contributions that I paid in, and I'm able now to draw on that. But, you know, we've got 12.5 million pensioners, and a large number of them are not in that situation, or they only have a small works pension, so that they are benefiting from it. We had a team out canvassing. You know, I live in the Peak District. We had a team out canvassing earlier today in an area where we have a large number of older people, not particularly well off, and they were thrilled to bits. It was the key thing that they kept mentioning, that particularly with the winter and with the additional expenses of high fuel prices and so on, they're really very glad indeed to think that in the spring their pensions will be going up in order to account for inflation. And I think, Nana, what the government is trying to do is saying, right, that's 12.5 million people that we don't have to worry quite so much about. The difference between that 12.5 million people and, say, 12.5 million people in their 20s and 30s is that one lot can't work. You know, there's quite a few pensioners who do, 1.5 million pensioners do, but it's only part-time in most cases. Majority, I work part-time, that's what I'm doing now, but majority of pensioners, and particularly people in their 80s and their 90s, they're not in a position to change their income. They are on fixed incomes, and therefore they feel that it's right that the government should look after them and they won't have too many worries in future.
But Edwina, what's the point, though, of them sort of raising the amount that you're going to get in your pension only for them to tax it from you as well? So in the end, it could be that they might as well have just not bothered with that because they're just going to take the money off you anyway. And some pensioners might end up having to do things like tax returns, which is fiddly at the best of times.
Well, many of us, many pensioners are taxpayers and have been right from the time that we retired, if we ever retired. And why is that? Because the allowance is 12,500, well, 12,570. That went up a couple of years ago quite substantially. And that means that the state pension is still well below it, even when it's gone up to about 10 grand. There's still a bit of headway there, a bit of headroom there. So the situation you're describing will only affect people who have an additional pension on top of that. Now, I grant you, that's a lot of us. But, you know, the tax return you have to do is actually quite easy. And if you are earning lots. If you've got a lot coming in, say, from another pension or from your savings, well, then, yes, you may well have to do a tax return, but it's a fairly easy thing to do. And most pensioners, you know, we did maths when we were at school.
No, I hate tax returns. I hate doing stuff like that. So in your view, then, after this, then, do you think the Conservative Party is still the party for pensioners?
I think there's a little bit of politics playing in there. I think you're quite right, Nana. You're a highly intelligent lady. That most pensioners vote. Their voting rate is much higher than amongst young people who do a lot of moaning and pay more tax relatively. But pensioners, I think, they're quite shrewd. They've lived through a lot. They understand how important things like the health service are. So if they have to pay tax, they do it willingly. They understand how important the care system is, and they will recognise the government's tried to put a lot more money into that. And they understand how dependent they are on the rest of society. I won't say the word grateful, but I think there's a word of recognition there that actually it's a good thing when a nation has as many old people as we have, and we are an old, old country, that somewhere along the line there should be some support for them. If you don't have that support, Nana, then you're going to have the same stories that we used to have years ago of poverty-stricken pensioners, and that would be awful.
That would indeed be terrible. Edwina Curry, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. She's a former Conservative MP. Well, I'm also joined by Investment Trust Director and Investment Writer Max King. Max, thank you very much for joining me. Do you think pensioners will actually be better off or worse off after this autumn statement?
I think they will be worse off, though not in a major way. And the reason why they'll be worse off is because over time, the freezing of the personal allowance will mean that people, even on the basic pension, will be paying taxation. Those who've got a bit of savings and have got income from those savings will, of course, be paying rather more taxation. I do worry that in the future the government may be will be breaking the commitment of pensioners. After all, I don't think there's really much doubt that their forecasts are rather over-optimistic, that their tax revenue won't raise as much as they hope for, the expenditure commitments will pile up, and therefore they'll be coming back for more taxes or more cuts, and pensioners will be in the firing line. So, I do think pensioners are going to be worse off, but perhaps not so much as the rest of the population. You've got to remember that actually we ought to be supporting hard-working people really first and foremost. And a lot of these hard-working people would not particularly like the idea that people who are not contributing to the economy are being looked after so well. And that's sort of why I think actually when it comes to the triple lock, say that we should actually go on a rolling 2 or 3 year basis rather than an annual basis. I think it sticks in the craw of many working people that pensioners get 10% this year. And if we kept the system but used a rolling 2 or 3 year basis, it would be much more gentle than that.
Well, I think I'm going to bring Edwina back because you said that it sticks in your craw that pensioners should be in the time people might start getting annoyed with this triple lock. Edwina, what's your view on that, though? Because he's saying that actually pensioners will be slightly worse off potentially with this.
Well, no, they won't be worse off if the allowances stay at the same level. And bear in mind what I said, that actually they've jumped in recent years. A very big increase in the tax-free allowances a couple of years ago. To my surprise, I thought 12.5 grand tax-free was really quite a lot. And that also helps low-paid workers, all sorts of people on minimum wage and living wage. And I think that's a big help. Amongst those pensioners, you've still got people who are claiming pension credit. You've still got quite a lot of really not very well-off pensioners, particularly women who only have their state pension, bearing in mind that in those generations, it was much less common for women to be working or to be paying a full national insurance stamp. And so they often find that when they do claim the pension, it's not very much. And their costs are much higher than many working people because they're stuck at home all day. You've got to have the heat on. My meter has just told me that I've clocked up 40 quid's worth of heating today.
Just today?
Because it's cold.
Oh, God, you must have a big house.
We've got gas under heating. This is a problem for many, many older people. So don't be mean. It's your mum you're talking about. and it's you yourself when you get to retirement age.
But this pensioner with a very big house, though, it's costing you £40 a day, Edwina. I mean, look, you see what I mean, though? Max, Edwina's saying that it's just people are being mean, though, ultimately, because pensioners, they have worked really hard, you know. They have wisdom, and it's their time of life now for them to sort of sit back, and we should actually, as a younger generation...
I agree. I think we should continue with the triple lock, but I don't think it has to be an annual test. I think it can be a test which runs over 2 years, and that means that they wouldn't get so much this year, but they would catch up in future years. I think that would be a fairer system to those in work. But I think, you know, the current government is basically squeezing working people till the pipsqueak, and I don't think that's, that's a good thing if you want to encourage growth in the economy. And I think it'll ultimately undermine the tax base. So I think it's the danger is that we're heading into a sort of downward spiral of problems.
So, Max, do you think then it is? So do you think it's then worth them keeping this triple lock? Not on an overall look, if you look at the entire economy and what us having to actually agree to this will do to the economy, do you actually think that it's the right thing for them to do?
I think it should. Yes, I think they should keep it, but on a rolling 2-year basis, certainly. I also think that actually the government should reintroduce what was once called the Rooker-Wise Amendment and index link on an annual basis the tax-free amount. Now, I accept that a couple of years ago the tax-free amount went up quite sharply, but if this freeze has continued for 6 years, will be everyone who's working will be underwater, and they will not have kept pace with inflation. So I think that this was a policy introduced by 2 left-wing Labour MPs in the middle of a financial crisis in the 1970s, and it was backed by Mrs. Thatcher and the Conservative Party, who in those days used to support low taxation, and was continued by every chancellor until Rishi Sunak came along. So I think it was an excellent innovation which lasted for nearly 40 years, and I hope that the pensions triple lock can last for 40 years. But actually, I would like to see these sort of measures, once they're embedded in the political system, sacrosanct.
Well, listen, Max, thank you so much for joining me. That's Max King, an investment trust director, and also Edwina Curry, former Conservative MP. Thank you both. Well, this is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. On the way, we'll continue our Great British Debate. I'm asking, is it worth keeping the pension triple lock? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter Fryer. They put Fryer this time. You're Fryer. Is it a difference between Fryer and a father?
Yeah, Fryer wears the whole habit, round the rope.
Oh,
Fry Tuck.
Fry Tuck, yes. Fryer Calvin Robinson, that's what it says. But first, your latest news headlines.
Hello there, it's 5:35. I'm Bethany Elsey here to bring you up to date on GB News. The UK is boosting its support for Ukraine, pledging a £50 million package of air defence aid. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed the move during an unannounced visit to Kiev. He told President Volodymyr Zelensky the UK will continue to stand with Ukraine as it continues to fight to end the barbarous war. The chief executive of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing has been sacked after a 2-year-old boy died following prolonged exposure to mould. An inquest heard how the parents of Awab Ishak had made numerous complaints to the council, but were simply told to paint over it. The council issued a statement saying it was no longer tenable for Gareth Swarbrick to stay on. The government has welcomed the decision, but says the board still has questions to answer. 4 men have been arrested as part of a significant police operation into paramilitary activity in Belfast. Detective Chief Superintendent Andy Hill says a number of weapons and devices were seized.
During the searches, we found 8 firearms, a large quantity of assorted ammunition, 3 pipe bombs, which we suspect are viable, balaclavas and UVF emblems and flags. East Belfast UVF continues to be involved in a range of paramilitary crime, including violence, intimidation, money laundering and drug dealing, causing harm to their own communities.
FIFA's president has defended the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar and tried to show empathy during a news conference.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Gianni Infantino's comments follow heavy criticism of Doha's treatment of migrant workers and LGBTQ people. He says he's compassionate towards all groups. He's also accused the West of hypocrisy, telling European nations they have a lot to answer for. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Don't go anywhere. Nana will be back in just a moment.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you've just joined us, you're coming towards the end of the show. Why have you joined us now? You should join us at 4 o'clock. But it's OK, because you're here now. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's time for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is it actually worth keeping the pension triple lock? In the Chancellor's autumn statement, Jeremy Hunt announced that the pension triple lock would remain in order to protect the vulnerable after UK inflation hit a 41-year high in October. So this means that payments will rise by 10.1% next April, as pension credit will also increase in line with inflation. However, the rise in pension payments means that there is a much greater likelihood that state pensions will go above personal tax allowances, and therefore more pensioners will be paying more tax. So is it actually worth it? In the Great British Debate this hour, I'm posing that question. Is it worth keeping the triple lock? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by Lizzie Cundy and Friar Kelvin Robinson.
Lord Friar.
He's not wearing the outfit.
Friar, yeah. I'm liking the suit today, though.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
thank you.
What's happened to the robes? You usually wear them on a Sunday.
Let's not get started on that one.
OK, I didn't know.
Man of the cloth.
Man of the cloth. Right, OK. OK. So let's go with you, Lizzie. First of all, pension triple lock.
Oh, isn't Jeremy Hunt so good looking after our pensioners, isn't
Not
he?
really, is he?
Oh, really? Do me a break. I mean, these poor pensioners, what's to protect them from rising food prices, rising energy prices, decline in the NHS and the health services, everything else? Is he really, really looking after them? Look at the council tax going up through the roof from local governments. Quite frankly, I think the value of the pension is going to be in free fall.
So you're saying he's putting in one hand and taking out the other?
Exactly.
Calvin?
I mean, of course, we need to make sure that the elderly and the vulnerable are protected in society, but with this, what is it, £90 billion squeeze on pensions and welfare, working people can't afford it. Like, the country isn't balancing anymore, the books aren't balancing anymore. It looks like the 10% increase on the pension is going to do some damage to working people, but also for the next generation, it looks like the pension age is going up to 67, if not 70.
How dare
so by the time we need a pension, there won't be any money in there.
There won't be any pension.
There won't be any
The system is not sustainable, so they need to change it. I don't know how, but they need to look at it seriously.
It's just like they're chucking money out for things. Now, listen, I am all respectful. I think it's very important to look after the elderly.
Yeah.
For me, my mum's a pensioner, and I think, that should be right. But they have to be careful that even though they're doing this, they are doing other things that will actually make it more expensive for a pensioner to live. So, OK, there is help for the energy at the moment, but the prices are going up. Everything, the food is more expensive. Yeah. Everything is more expensive just to live.
The cost of
so
living,
by just giving them this extra, and then some of them will then end up in a tax bracket, so then they'll have to pay tax.
But look at the health services, all in decline, social services in decline, everything's in decline. You'd like kicking this football down, let's say, to Qatar. It keeps going. It's going to land in catastrophe.
Catastrophe.
Exactly. Do you like that? But even say if they've got savings, look at the bank rates going up. All their savings are going to be eroded if they do have any savings.
The banks aren't even passing on at the moment some of the hike in interest rates. So if you've got a savings account and you're lucky enough to have some money, you'd have thought that high interest rates would be a good thing. But hey, they're taking their time to do that. They're literally, and they shouldn't be allowed. And I actually think the government should be looking at ways of clobbering those companies that, first of all, benefited heavily during the pandemic due to their legislation. So companies like Amazon, companies who delivered food, companies who did all that, because we were not allowed to go out. But also, I think that, we're talking about reparations from the UK. I think we should be talking about reparations from China. And, the pandemic, we should be looking at that as well. But nobody's looking at anything like that. And also, reparations from this government, frankly, after their awfulness with their so-called chucking out money to different companies during the pandemic and then not even recouping it properly.
Well, that's it.
It's unbelievable.
We need some tax cuts. We need some breaks because people are struggling. People are suffering right now, especially working people. And actually, this new budget supports people that aren't working far more than it supports people that are working. And I think you should be encouraged, you should be better off for working than not working. This country's got it back to front. It's socialism is what it is.
It is, and this was a nation where we love everyone to chip in and do their bit. It's something, we can aspire to and flourish and grow. Look at what it is at the minute. It's,
what happens when they all leave? When all the workers leave because they can't afford to live here? Who's going to fund the welfare state and the pension?
Exactly. And we've got 42% of this nation don't pay any tax.
Well, the migration figures as well, so people leaving the UK, people are leaving in their droves, and they're working-age people as well. So they have to be very careful. And then they're saying, we're open borders and all this. Listen, nobody wants to come here. They're looking at the cost of living. They're thinking, actually, is this really a place to want to come and work? Because every penny I have will be going into tax.
And inflation is now here over 11%. And many of the pensioners fall over the 12,500 tax-free allowance. Therefore, they'll have to start to pay tax.
How does it make any sense?
I know.
It's like giving you with one hand, taking it with the other.
Exactly. It's like Robin Hood. But Jeremy Hunt's wanting the big applause. Oh, he's doing such a great thing for the old age pensioners. Good old Jeremy. No, not good old Jeremy.
It's two very rich men, millionaires, one almost a billionaire, making decisions on how they're going to literally cream the middle class to help everybody. But apart from the middle class themselves, I don't like the way it's going at all. Then I don't think they're the right people to be doing the job at all.
But they're not. It's not aspirational. Why do people? There's no growth. Why are people going to work their socks off for what? It's no encouragement.
Well, there's none, because you might as well stay at home, because that's what happened during the pandemic, and a lot of people like that. But because you're going to get all these benefits if you do. Well, so there's no incentive for people to go to work, because actually a lot of people would be better off not working.
Do you think they're heading towards a universal basic income where people just get paid by the government to stay at home and they're therefore dependent on the government and therefore dependent on voting for them constantly, keeping them in power, and they could be part of a wider, let's say, world government? Do you think
that's it? I would have called that a conspiracy theory, but unfortunately,
I'm going to say this.
That's where we're going.
I think Jeremy Hunt's trying to sabotage the whole of the Conservative Party. I really do. And let's not forget what his thoughts were over lockdowns, agreeing with China's regime.
Do you think that they're trying to mess up the economy in such a way? Practically on purpose, but not really, because they know they're going to be out. So if they do their best and get as much money out of us as possible and try and fix this problem that they've
halfway
created...
there. So they are are destroying the economy.
In a way.
Not because of that, but because they want to bring in the central bank digital currencies. They want to bring in a new economic system whereby the Bank of England defines the currency system and how much you spend and where you can spend it.
Do you think?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Do you think that's the way
I
it's
agree,
going?
yeah.
Well, I wonder
But Conservative are only going one way, right?
Well, they're going down, aren't they, really, frankly. Right, but this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's see if our great British voices agree with us. Your opportunity to tell us what you think about the topics we're discussing. I've got 4 of you. Wonderful. Right, I'm going to start with Brian Dugan from Solihull. He's always got something to say. Brian, what do you think about this pension triple lock? Is it actually worth it if you look at the big picture out of what's going to happen with the middle class, how they're getting the money, and how eventually it might end up bringing pensioners into taxation?
No, there are pitfalls and everything, but if there are no guaranteed uplifts to the state pension, then it loses its value, it's eroded, and that's something I think which I think everyone agrees. It's sacrosanct that we support our pensioners, that we actually have something in place that safeguards their lives as they progressively get older. And I think the argument in terms of course, working people, we are the ones burdened with this predominantly, but we cannot lose sight of the fact these are people who have worked in this country all their lives and contributed a lot. And I think giving back a little bit is something that we have to safeguard. Now, perhaps look at the system in terms of how it's calibrated, but we need to have something in place. And right now, it's the triple lock.
Well, I actually agree with you. We do need to safeguard the money in some way. But ultimately, my question is whether they're doing it, but actually putting in one hand and taking in the other. Let's see if Miranda Richardson, not the real Miranda, but she's there in Northampton. We do this all the time, Miranda. What do you think?
Hi, Nana. Do you know what? Lizzie summed it up. The taking with one and giving with the other. That is what every budget does. Everybody always asks me, how's the budget sorted you this time? How do you feel about this time? They take with one, they give back with the other. That's how it works. I think we also have to remember this system's only been in place since 2010. It wasn't kind of groundbreaking. It's not been there forever. So actually, as much as there are some, my parents are 84 and 92, they are long, pensioners. Some of the newer pensioners haven't been paying into the system as long as everybody else has.
That's true. That's a good
so
point.
we've got to look at that balance. And there's younger people now that are working that don't bother with a pension anymore.
Well, that is a good
point. Because they now say there'll be nothing in it for me at the end.
Well, that's how a lot of them are probably disincentivised by. John Reid, you're there in Kidderminster. What do you think?
Yes, hello, Nana.
Hello.
As a 74-year-old pensioner, I am 101% with keeping the triple lock. Absolutely. Right. However, if I imagine that the Tories are doing this because they've somehow got some kind spot in their heart for us old age people, then I think you're in cloud cuckoo land. They're doing it because in 2 years' time there's an election and they don't want to lose all the old people's votes. So they're looking after themselves. Yeah, we get a little bit of extra money out of it, but hey-ho, if I wasn't working now part-time, I wouldn't be in existence. I'd have no money. I'd be on the street. So I've got no time whatsoever for this government. The sooner they go, the better.
Right, let's go to Seshni on that bombshell. They're going to go. Seshni, what do you think? She's there in Milton Keynes.
Good evening, Nana. Nana, yes, I do think that the triple lock is worth keeping. The reason being is that pensioners are not able to boost their income. Even before the cost of living crisis and the energy crisis, 1 in 5 pensioners were experiencing poverty. I do think that increasing and keeping the triple lock, the triple lock is there against inflation, against earnings, and more than 2.5%, which is 10.1%. So I do believe that keeping the triple lock is essential and vital for our pensioners.
Thank you very much, Seshni. Big thank you to my wonderful, great British voices, Miranda in Northamptonshire, Brian in Solihull, John in Kidderminster and Seshni in Milton Keynes. Thank you. Right, so that's what they think. What do you think? It's good to hear your thoughts. But now it's time for our quick-fire quiz. It's a part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories that are hitting the headlines right now. Let's hear your buzzers. I'm joined by Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie, let's hear your buzzer. And GBNews presenter, Father Calvin Robinson. Wonderful, wonderful. Now remember, do not press the buttons before I've finished, otherwise it's all. And please play along at home. Right, question 1. A couple is racing against the clock to visit 39 locations of a certain franchise before they close down. But which franchise is it? Is it A, McDonald's? Is it B, Wetherspoons? Or is it C, Pret a Manger? Oh, I don't know.
That was close, wasn't it?
First.
Lizzie.
I'm going
Lizzie.
for C.
You're
I
going
don't
for C.
actually
She
know
thinks
this. It's a
Pret a Manger.
guess.
It was B, Wetherspoons.
It's B, Wetherspoons.
Oh, not Wetherspoons.
It is actually Wetherspoons, yeah. But you can't get the point because obviously Lizzie buzzed before you.
That's
Have
not
I
how
got
that
time for a
works.
very quick story?
Quick.
I had to look after Pamela Anderson, who was doing pantomime at Wimbledon Theatre.
When?
This few years back, and she said, the only place I want to go is Wetherspoons. Can you take me there? And I took her across the road to Wetherspoons, and she loved it.
Down now. That'd have been
Oh, that's very sad.
Ah, right. Well, the couple spent their 40th anniversary inside their favourite pub and was shocked to hear that it was closing down. No, but they don't have any music there. They're now desperately trying to visit as many as possible before they close the doors to punters. What do you think? Would you go to Wetherspoons?
Love Wetherspoons. It's Sam Smiths that don't have music.
Great.
Wetherspoons have
I love a Wetherspoons. Yeah, I love Wetherspoons.
Sam Smiths is good too. They're properly English.
Okay. Right, question 2. You don't get the point anyway. Question 2. A woman in Texas has been crowned with having the largest feet of a living female. Great. But what is the size of her shoe? Closest answer wins.
What size are you?
6, 7, 7.
There we go. Go with that.
7. What about you?
I'm going to say 16.
You saw it.
I did.
She's cheating. She saw the answer, but then she tried.
I'm a Chelsea supporter. Of course I cheat.
Tried to cheat. Yes, look at the size of her feet. The Texans' feet are a massive 13 inches long, which means she wears size 17 UK feet. Some people don't like feet.
That's not a foot, that's a canoe.
How big are your feet?
11 and a half.
What about you, Liz?
Yeah, I'm a 5.5.
Oh, really? Oh, really thanks me. I'm 7. 7.5, sometimes 7 mainly, though. Right, question 3. Who got that right? No one. Only.
Well, I did, really.
All right, we'll let you have the point. Right, question 3. A dog toy in the shape of which public figure, I know what you're thinking, has soared in popularity? Is it A, is it Donald Trump? Is it B, Boris Johnson? Or C, Nicola Sturgeon? Bear in mind, it's going to grab it in its jaws. Lizzie?
I'm going for Donald Trump.
What about you?
Nicola Sturgeon.
Yeah!
Is it? Is it? I haven't seen this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to buy that for somebody who's got a dog for Christmas. One man recently spent £3,500 on Liz Truss's dog toys, only for her to quit after 44 days in office. But now pet stores across the UK are selling them in the form of Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. Would either of you like a dog toy like that, made in your likeness?
No, not really, no.
What about you, Liz?
I've maybe been called that before. No, thank you. No.
Right, it's true or false. Question 4. One man has banned the use of electricity in his house and is making his family wear head torches in order to save money during the cost of living crisis. True or false? Lizzie?
Yes, and I have one of these, and they're fantastic.
What about you, Calvin?
It's true. It's sad, isn't it?
It's true, it's true. It is true, it's sad. Yes, the family have had to change their habits and necessities after their energy bill doubled to £320 a month. What sacrifices have you had to make to accommodate for this, Calvin?
And my energy bills have gone up crazy as well.
Are you growing your hair for more heat?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
What about you?
I'm liking wearing, because I used to just wear little skimpy shorts around the house. Now I'm putting on my jumpers. I'm being, you know.
Well, I'm not doing anything of that. I turn the heating sky high and then watch the meter and start crying.
We're not all paid the same as you now.
No, I start crying, I'm crying. Question 5. Matt Hancock is still in the jungle. He's managed to survive the first elimination. But who was the first celebrity to depart the jungle? Was it A, Charlene White, B, Boy George, or C, Mike Tyndall?
It was indeed Charlene White.
Oh.
And she was taking over with the cooking. Let my friend Boy George cook.
She was too
bit bossy. Nice lady, but bit bossy.
Too bossy.
Yeah.
You're right, it is Charlene White. The journalist was eliminated from the jungle first after receiving the least amount of public votes, with many believing the former health secretary would be first. Who are you guys rooting for in the jungle? Quickly.
I am Boy George.
And you?
Oh, buddy.
Not watching it because it's rubbish.
What about Matt Hancock?
Matt Hancock, no.
He is winning all the trials.
Well, listen, on today's show, none of them. We've been asking you if you're prepared to vote Labour. According to our poll, 15% of you say yes, 85% of you say no. Thank you so much, my panel. Broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GBNews presenter Father Calvin Robinson. And thank you to you for your company at home. I'll see you tomorrow at 4. Enjoy.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK will be mostly dry, but heavy rain will push in from the west. Here are the details. Let's start off in the southwest of England, and it will be a cloudy end to the day with some rain starting to reach western parts of Cornwall, spreading to all later. Over in the southeast, it'll be cloudy for some, with outbreaks of rain, especially in London. Other areas, though, will have a clear evening. Turning cloudier across Wales this evening, so whilst eastern parts may have some clear spells, the cloud will thicken ahead of rain arriving later. Cloud and a few spots of rain are likely for the East Midlands. Meanwhile, the West Midlands should end the day on a dry and clear note before things turn wet overnight. A cloudy picture this evening for northeast England. The odd spot of rain is possible, but for many it'll be dry. Some low cloud may bring hill fog to any higher routes. Often cloudy for much of Scotland this evening, with some rain likely. Heavy rain then arriving from the west overnight, spreading to all parts and becoming impactful in the east. A very wet and windy evening for Northern Ireland. Here the rain should clear during the first part of the night, so it will be drier and clearer to start Sunday. The band of heavy rain will continue to sweep eastwards to all parts overnight, with clearer but showery weather following. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to